Hello, hello, everybody. As you can tell, we got new music. We got it going on. But welcome to this podcast, the Black Butterfly Podcast. And if you know that song, that's Denise Williams, who is from Gary, Indiana. So we like to represent. But I am Amaru.
And I'm Candace. Welcome to the Cocoon Room.
This week, we wanted to talk about, well, our topic this week is what it means to be Black. And so that could be a plethora of things, right? And so we wanted this to be a light discussion again because we know it's Sunday night and people got stuff to do and all that. So, we wanted to touch on this topic. It could be from, and this is an open-ended question, right? So no answer is wrong, but we wanted to give our points of view on it. Also, we got input from family members, friends, and all that. And so it should be a fun hourly podcast, right? And so we wanted to present that to you guys tonight. With that, do you have any opening remarks, Candace?
Just that we will try our very best to keep it brief. We know the game is on and we know you guys are watching it. So we'll do our very best. If you have any questions about our topic, just ask, tune in, and we will try to get them covered for you.
All right, cool. So with that said, we're going to start with the scripture of the day. And can I hand it off to you, Candace?
You can. Thank you.
Cool. So with that said, we're going to start with the scripture of the day. And can I hand it off to you, Candace?
You can. Thank you.
So with that said, we're going to start with the scripture of the day. And
I'm sorry, just a second. The scripture of today is Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. So I chose that that scripture just because I know here lately I've been seeing a lot of people who are kind of like headed towards some storms or have been in some storms. And I think it's really important that we be careful who we surround ourselves with and who we let in our spaces. And so if you know anything about the heart, you have to be careful with matters of the heart. And so I thought that scripture was very important to share with you guys tonight.
Okay, cool. And then with that being said, too, we'd like to add with that the word of the day because it's a lot of stuff that we came up with when we were researching for tonight. And so we like to try to expedite this a little bit. And so I will have Candace give the word of the day.
All right. Our word of today is beautiful. And I chose that because of, I believe Black is beautiful and it's our topic. So the word of today, again, is beautiful, pleasing the senses or mind, of very high standard and excellence. And again, I think we're excellent people and I think we're beautiful.
And in Swahili, the translation is Rembo. So Marimbo. But I just found that out. So notice it doesn't have a lot of syllables in it, so it was kind of easy to enunciate. And so I would like to pivot a little bit to the topic tonight. We have a lot of information. We don't want it to be a history lesson, but it's just cool because I think nowadays our culture, our people, then you have culture vultures, right? You have people who take stuff from us and add it to their culture or say they came up with it. And so, we like to remind our audience, which I think we are plenty much of you don't need reminding, but we like to put it out there that we are proud of being Black people. People of we'll say people of color. That's another topic we got encompassed in this broadcast. But so we just have an action-packed night. But we want to encompass everything from what it means to be Black to, inventors, to people who were revolutionaries and things like that. And so no answer again is wrong. But we wanted to touch on that tonight. And so with that said, I know we had some information from the beginning, and I'll give it to you, Candace.
All right. Okay, so during slavery, colonizers called African Americans the N word, ending with the hard ER.
And this is talking about the evolution of what we were, well, not what we called ourselves, right? What colonizers, Europeans, Caucasians, whatever term you may want to use, called us, and how the words of the terms that they were using to label us shifted, right? And so check this out. It's interesting. Keep going, Candace.
Okay, so Afro is a village in Italy and was originally being used to describe Italians when they were coming over to America. So essentially, Afro was not even used to label Africans, but it was a term that the Europeans or the colonizers used eventually to describe African Americans or Blacks. And then we have African American cane can be documented to be used as far back as 1782.
And if you look here, with this, I thought this was pretty interesting because this is in the newspaper, right? In the 1780, the 1782. And so you look at the bottom of the newspaper, it was written, it says written by African American, right? And so just interesting how the terms were being evolved and shifted from Africo to African American to Negro to Black American, right? And so just interesting how a lot of that shifted and moved around through the years. Here we go. We got another one. So Afro American was being used as far back as 1788, based on research. And then that shifted from 1788, then it shifted to Black Americans, and then Afro American dated as far back as 1818. So you're just seeing the evolution and the movement of the labels that were being used upon us. There you go, Candace.
All right. So the N word evolved quickly to Negro. Negro is the Latin in the Portuguese interpretation for the color black. The color black word started off as Niger with Latin origins.
And that's interesting in itself because if you know the English language, a lot of it has Latin origins. And so when we were talking yesterday about this, that was pretty interesting that you tried to, the term black, right, is used like derogatory, just to be just to be mean and being vicious, right? And so they took that term, right, from another language and just started using Negro, right? And so I just thought that was interesting and just shows how hateful that particular people were to our ancestors. And it just really is baffling to me. And if you look at today, the behavior is really not changed. Technology changes, time changes, but the behavior stays the same. So, but the reason we're showing all of this is because our people were still standing through the test of time throughout all of this, right? And as we're going to unfold here, there was a lot of inventors, a lot of people who fought back for civil rights despite all this stuff. And so our people, this is what it means to be Black to me. And I love this. Go ahead.
Okay, so colored people was a term that was heavily used in the civil rights era, which was the 50s and 70s. So last night when we and Amari were doing our research, he talked to me and I explained to him a little bit about, I was like, realistically, a lot of Black people don't like the term colored or people of color. And he said, that's interesting. I actually had a conversation some years back with one of our classmates, and our classmates told me or explained to me that he didn't like to be called, he doesn't like, using that phrase or being called people of color because it's derogatory. And so I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, he said, I was interested because he said that if we allow them to label us a certain term, when reparations came around, right? He said they can use that as a way to for us to, like, let's say if reparations came with some monetary amount, right? He said that it would be a way of them using it against us in tracing our ancestral origins. And I was just like, wow, I never thought about it like that. And so he said we have to, this was probably about 6-7 years ago, he said we have to find a way to define ourselves, right? Quit using their terms to define us. We have to define ourselves based on whatever social it may be, not particularly with color, because again, you know, if you use terms that they use against us, they can use it against us when, let's say, monetary reparations came about. And I just thought that was really interesting insight on that. And so that's why it's interesting seeing all these terms through the years, through centuries, shift and change, right? And so it's just really interesting to me, weird and interesting to me. The next one, go ahead, Candice.
Before we move on to the next question, I actually have a question for you. Now, what do you consider yourself? What labeling would you use if someone asked you?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't even know, like, because it's like, I would say black man. I would just say black man, period. I think with our people, we have been labeled a lot of things, as you see, right, through the years, and people try to be politically correct, right? But I, like, for me, I don't want to even put a color on it, right? Because I know I'm a black man, king, right? And so when I see my brothers, it's either brothers or kings. When I see my sisters, the sisters are queens. And so obviously we recognize each other, you know, as black people. And I would never, or I would probably use melanated people, because I love that term, right? And as you look at our people, we have the most melanin on the earth, right? So I would love that. That's the term I would probably shift towards. I still haven't used as much as I would like, but I think that would be the term that I would identify myself. How about yourself?
For me, I would say black. Black is beautiful, obviously. I think oftentimes people say African or African American and different things like that, but some people have an issue with that because they'll say, well, you know, I have some African descent, but I've never been to Africa, you know, so they don't want to be called African. Or some people will say, well, you know, I was born in America. I just want to be labeled as an American, you know, so you'll have people with different viewpoints. But again, question, if you had to fill out an application or you were putting something down, what would you mark?
And see, but that's the thing with me, I always put other, because
Okay.
in the census, again, they are labeling you that, right?
Mhm.
And so if you put yourself in the other category, they're not particularly labeling you. You understand what I'm saying? With a lot of our people too, we have a lot of mixed races in our blood, right? A lot with Native American, right? And so it's conducive to use the other category box. But like I shared with you yesterday, I stopped filling out the census years ago because they use that census statistics against us as far as when we talk about resources being allocated per state, right, through the federal government. And so that's why I stopped filling it out. And it's just interesting because throughout as I'm getting more savvy with grants and stuff at work, I'm seeing how that is being used against us. You know, they'll say, oh, we have $2 million earmarked for the African American community, and we'll have $15 million earmarked for the majority, right? And they're basing that on statistical data from the census. And so it's like, wow, you know our issues, you know our plight, you know the stuff that we struggle with based on the census, and you're still going to allot us only 2 million when it's 17 million. You know, just giving an example, 2 million versus 15 million, right? So it's just weird to me. And so that's why I stopped filling out the census, and that's why I don't like putting myself in that black box in any type of categorically sheet or document. So that's my view on it.
All right. So just to let our viewers know, you are not defined by the things that, you know, they have labeled us as, because it constantly changes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks, Amaru. All right. So go back to that one because we didn't answer that. All right. Minority was used heavily in the 1990s. And so when do you believe that shift came about? I know oftentimes when they started talking about jobs or athletic programs or schools or fundings, who got what and where funds were allocated to what programs, minority came up a lot. And I believe that some people felt that it was unfair that they had made out specific laws for minorities to push into certain arenas.
Oh yeah, affirmative action. That's where I think was immediately when I think 1990s, I think of affirmative action, because I remember being a huge issue back then. White people being mad because they were being casted out of job opportunities because the color of their skin. And you think about it, the federal government, it had to be a federal law for businesses to get a quota on how many black people you can hire. Think about how crazy that is. Like, that is so asinine to me to even think about that. The federal government had to create laws to say, hey, people, when these black people graduate from college, we're going, there's a law, you have to have a quota on how many black people you hire. Like, wow. So, but that goes to another issue, and we'll be here all night talking about that. If we had our own, we wouldn't have to ask them for a job, right? So that rings of that. But that's where that term to me sprouted out, because then when you use the term minority, well, now when you use it, it's not even allocated to race anymore. Sexual orientation now. Back then in the 90s when we were kids, it was specifically for race because, as we know, the LGBTQ community wasn't as relevant as it is today, right? It was still around, but it wasn't as powerful and strong as it is today. And so when you talked about minorities, you talked about this Hispanics, blacks and whites. And he talked about who were getting the majority of the job opportunities versus the majority. And so that's for my thing. If someone else have any comments on that, please lay them in the comment section. But we'll go to the next one.
And I just want to, we do have a comment very fast. My minority also includes women.
Yes. I do not want to forget that. Absolutely.
I was going to add that in there, Mr. Thanks, Jay.
We got a couple comments. I didn't even see these. Good. Hey, that's Marcus. Bears almost won today. Yeah, he's talking about beautiful. Yes. That is sister-in-law. And then she said, yes, no, I'm not mad. We were almost there. We almost won, but hey, it is what it is. We're going to have a tough year, so absolutely. I always tell her when we texting good night, and then it's like, and then I text something else. It's like, I thought you said good night, so it's a running joke. So absolutely not mad about that. You are right, a more broad top. Yes. And so I do not want to dismiss women as not being classified under minority back then, because as the 1970s, Title IX and all that stuff, that's when all that stuff came about. And so they were pushing for equal rights as well. And still today, right? Equal pay and all that stuff today. And so do not want to dismiss that at all. Go ahead.
Since you brought that up, I do want to say, you said how it was ridiculous that they had to actually create a law for blacks to move into certain arenas. They have done something more currently, like the Crown Act, that will allow African Americans to wear their hair natural or wear them in locks or, sister locks, different things like that. And I know it sounds like, that is far-fetched, but again, oftentimes, people are discriminated against just because of the way that they wear their hair. So yeah, they had to pass a law so that people can keep their jobs.
That is so ridiculous to me, right? And then you see a guy named Michael Chabrowski. He's walking in there with spiked hair with them big old things on his ears, right? And he's a corporate, he has a corporate job, but we can't get hired and we got natural hair, right? We don't have protruding earlobes, nothing like that, right? So that just, I'll share a quick story with you. I had a mentor when I was the president of NABA at UWM, and she still works at the IRS. And she said that, this was like 2011, 2010. She said she would go to work right now. This is the IRS. She said she would walk in and this white woman touched her hair. And she hit the white, hey, don't be touching my hair. And she was like, oh my God, I'm just amazed at how your hair was short yesterday and how it's long today. Yes. And I'm like, I'm just like, really? Like, this is at the IRS, like Uncle Sam's place, right? This type of behavior is always, that is so ridiculous to me. And so it goes to, it talk about like what you was talking about the hair. So that was like 10, 15 years ago, right? They had to pass a law for that. I think that is so crazy. But anyway, next. So one of the top people of color is now being heavily used, but it's grouping of all nationalities and not just melanated people. And so what I meant by that is, they try to encompass like obviously mixed people, Black people, Mexican people, Hispanics, Arabians, right? So you can, anybody who has a little tan to them, they always try to include them, be inclusive, label them as people of color. But when you do that, then the people who have the highest plights and the highest issues get pushed to the backside, right? When you do that, because now you're focusing on the small, not saying their issues are not important, but we have always had the brunt of the brutality, the brunt of the issues. And so when we, what they say, the loudest people in the room, they don't be heard all the time, because we've always been screaming, kicking, and shouting about our issues and our plights and the things that's been, with police brutality and people, unemployment issues and things like redlining with banking. And, I could just go on and on.
Not just banking, redlining also happens with insurance and purchasing homes.
Yes. And so that is so interesting to me when you put that label on all these people, the people who has been having issues for the longest time, they get brushed aside. And so that's why I hate that term. I really do hate that term. Go ahead.
All right. So just because I thought it would be very interesting to talk about the stereotypes we face as we talk about Black excellence. So some stereotypes are integrated into the fabric of the USA, coincided with the institution of slavery. The expected behaviors of African Americans are fueled by stereotypes maintained by the status quo. Throughout U.S. history, the stereotypes of African Americans, particularly males, has had a negative impact on African American families and communities. For instance, the belief that African Americans are unintelligent, lazy, violent, and criminals has affected educational outcomes, employment opportunities, socioeconomic status, and the dismantling of African American families and communities. Educators, businessmen, and law enforcement often believe these stereotypes, which influences the treatment of African Americans, the oppression of African Americans, is a critical human rights issue that has to be addressed in social work practice.
And so basically all that is saying, especially the males, we always get the ridiculously negative stereotype. We always get that. And I thought that was a great point you made when we talked about that yesterday, when you talked about the police and socioeconomic status and, how the effect that it has on families. But go ahead and can you elaborate on that?
Yes. Oftentimes when people believe a certain thing, so a lot of times they group African Americans or Blacks, whatever you like to be called, they put you in these boxes and they put you in these groups and they treat you how they perceive you. I keep hearing someone say the worst place to ever be is in the mind of someone, someone who does not believe in you or think that you're a criminal. That's the worst place to ever be, is in someone's head that thinks negatively of you, because they'll treat you as such. And so oftentimes when you see police pulling over people just for minor traffic stops, they always end deadly. It's not because the person is actually doing something wrong. It's because of the perception about the person of, the Black person. Like, okay, I've heard that they're violent. I heard that they, maybe carry weapons. I heard that they are, maybe abusive. So I'm scared for my life. I'm pulling this person over. I don't know what they're going to do. So I'm already getting out the car with my guns drawn. In any sudden move, I'm scared. I'm shooting because I'm fighting for my life. So again, it's just perception. And oftentimes the things that people think about Black people aren't true, but they don't take the time out to really, talk to them. So that's why me and Amaru are so heavy on community relations, having relationships with people outside of the community and in the community that make laws and put things in place so that they understand that we aren't who they think we are.
And I have a quick story. So I remember this was years ago. I had to be like 19, 20. I had braids back then. So people who, they remember me back then. I had braids back then. So I remember driving up Bridge Road, right? And I had the window down, and I'm driving up right past the village. I get pulled over, right? And so now, mind you, license suspended, right? License suspended. So I already knew something was wrong. I had my seatbelt on and everything. He pulls up beside me and said, "You look like your license." I'm like, "Why you pull me over?" He said, "You look like your license is suspended."
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? But it was, so I couldn't. I had, I didn't have anything to fall back on. Like, well, that's insulting. I was just like, you know what? He gave me a ticket and sent me home. But it's just that interaction. I was having those interactions with the law enforcement at age 19. You know what I'm saying? And so, thank goodness that it didn't escalate to anything crazy, right? I think we have had those type of relations with police throughout history, but now with the cell phone, we can now put evidence to it, like, hey, this actually happened, and this is what I have actual footage of it, right? So I can't corroborate that happened because I didn't have any footage of it, but that's what his words to me was. And I was just like, wow, like, how do you look like your license suspended? Because my hair braided to the back, and I'm dark skinned. I got a nice car, my window down, and I got my seatbelt on. But I look like I've always thought about that. So, but it goes back to you saying the stereotypes for Black men. We always get the negative connotation. I use another example for work. I was talking to someone, and we were just joking. And this was another Black guy, melanated guy. And so he said, well, you don't want to say anything because you'll be considered the angry Black man. And I'm like, so? Like, because I'm like, and I said, for you to even say that, though, validates that that's what they think of us.
A box.
Because if we voice an opinion, we are angry. That makes no sense to me. But then when and I don't know when you go out to eat, I always pay attention to different groups of people. So they always call us loud, right? I had this conversation I did with somebody. I said, it's interesting. We are labeled loud, right? But you ever sit down with a group of people and they're Italian? Them jokers loud as hell, right? They loud and obnoxious, but we get labeled that, and it's a negative connotation, right? And so, or no disrespect, no shade, Hispanic people, right? Because they're vibrant, they're flavorful, right? But we get labeled, and this is a bad connotation, right? So I just think that's interesting. But go ahead.
Oftentimes they associate Black people with criminality, and that is what it is. And so people become very fearful. And when you're fearful of something, your job is to what? Exterminate it. Yeah. I don't want to leave. I would do injustice to the Black women if I didn't include some of the stereotypes that we also face.
Go ahead, absolutely.
So Black women, they're loud, they're not wives, they're just baby producers or baby moms. They're not educated. They don't know how to speak properly. They don't take care of their health. They don't work out. They don't eat healthy. All of those different things. Oh, and the one that I can't stand, Black women are gold diggers. And I just tell people, I don't think any woman is a gold digger. I think women are naturally expensive. And I think that some people date outside of their, they try to date outside of their income level. So I don't like those things. So,
and that is so crazy to me, because if you look at all these white celebrities, these women, what they doing? Come on. Like, but ain't whatever. Like, we're not going to, this is supposed to be about,
it's positivity, but I do want to say one last thing. Go ahead. I remember in the 90s, as we talk about young women who were having babies. I know it was so frowned upon when young African-American girls back then had children and they weren't married. But then when I went to college, I seen that they actually made a show about teen pregnancy, and they celebrated, and people got rich off of that. But when they thought it was, little Black girls that were doing it, it was such a big deal. They came from broken homes. Nobody supported them. They made them feel really bad about themselves. It affected their self-esteem. But it's just, to me, it's very funny how in one situation it's labeled bad, and in another situation they made a whole TV series about it. So
yeah. And so, but again, this is about what does it mean being Black to you, right? And so just funny, right? Because I love when my people are loud, right? I love that, because it shows that we don't really care what you think. Like, we're gonna be us anyway, right? I love the extra. Now you can be too extra, right? We can be like, okay, you're a little on top, right? But I love it. I love the sassiness. I love all that. Kid Marcus was stereotyped for financially stable enough to start a business from day one without asking anyone for business loans or contributions, creating Black Wall Street wherever you are, Black business. Absolutely, I agree with that. We got Sister Nikki G, the other analysis. We're talking about the Italians and the Hispanics. So that's my sister-in-law. Shout out to you. What's up, baby? Supporting.
Hi, Nikki.
Valita. Sister Valita, what's up? Sassy too. When she was talking, when you were talking about the stereotypes of Black women, sassy too, talk too much. Yeah. And you know, we work in corporate America, right? We just put this out there. It ain't y'all. Trust me. It ain't y'all. See, the difference is, y'all do it out front. They do it behind the scenes. They do it through email, right? But you know, I've seen a lot. Like, I got a lot of stories about that. But no, so I'm like, I find that real insulting that they try to do that to our women. So absolutely, you know, that is absolutely correct. Go ahead.
We Black women don't get properly diagnosed like other women of different races. Natasha, I would agree with that. Now there is more help available. And so now if you feel like there is an issue, make sure that you try, if you're talking about mental health or your primary care doctor and you're not getting the services that you need, switch your doctors. Try to find someone who looks like you and is going to be patient and take their time and actually do the things that you ask of them while you're in the clinic or the doctor's office.
Okay. And then we have some images too, right? And so one of the images we have, which is I thought was really cool, was about Ruby Bridges, and this was Candace's list. Go ahead, Candace.
Yes, so I thought it was important to list Ruby Bridges. When I was a little girl, my mom always talked about Ruby, so I never forgot, you know, what contributions that she gave to us. So Ruby Bridges, 6 years old, first Black child to racially integrate in an all-white elementary school in the South. And so it's a picture of her. And these are federal agents guarding her and actually taking her into the school and taking her back out of the school. And again, unfortunately, it was so violent back then that she had to be escorted, I think, almost a whole school year when she attended the school.
And think about it. That's your baby. She's 6 years old. And think about how courageous you had to be back then to do some of the things she's doing. And, you know, she don't have, like, I'm pretty sure mentally, that was, you know, 6-year-old, you don't really understand, but you like, dang, who's these white dudes in suits and stuff? And, you know, they making a big to do. I'm pretty sure news media and all that stuff was out there back then. And so, it speaks to our perseverance, you know, our determination. No, y'all gonna treat us right. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what our people has been about, trailblazing, you know, being at the forefront, you know, holding people accountable. And so I love that. That gives me so much energy seeing that. And like and another thing, when I see young ladies as yourself and my wife, or, you know, people that are Black women who are professional, those are the attributes and the characteristics that comes to me immediately when I see you guys, because, you know, as we're going to talk about in a little, well, actually, I'll share the video now. I love this video, and it's because it speaks truth to power, and it's just awesome. Give me 1 second. You know a video I'm talking about too. Give me 1 second so I can pull it up real quick. And it's from my boy Paige Mick, and, you know, this is, like, I think the essence of what we should be about as Black people, specifically the males. And it should also always be like this when we're protecting our females. So give me one moment, please.
And as he do that, guys and ladies, join us and tell us what you think, what it means to you to be Black. And so I'll just give you a word, resilient. I think we are very resilient.
There we go. Oh, I got to turn the volume up. Give me 1 second.
All right.
Respect of the woman. The world is in the condition that it is in because of the disrespect of the woman. There's so much that we place around her because, as we are also taught, that when you teach a man, you are teaching an individual. When you teach a woman, you are teaching a nation. Every prophet came from the womb of a woman. Every intelligent, strong, powerful man and woman came from the womb of a woman. So that's why they have to attack mother and remove father, because before you can get to her, you have to get through him. Every wise nation has security. And the man is supposed to be that security because of her value, because a whole nation comes out of her. So you must be protected. And the man having that essential position by nature. So someone who knows that about you will do their best to make sure you are removed, because there is a standard of conditioning that has to take place. Man, woman, child. If I want to get to that, I have to remove your protector, because he is watching to make sure that everything that goes on in this environment is safe and secure. That's why they have to attack masculinity, because they know, damn, if there's real men around here, we can't really do what we want to do. And if there are real women, we for damn sure can't do what we want to do, because she's going to protect that child, he's going to protect that woman, and they both are going to protect society.
And so I love that, because as I've gotten older, when you have kids and you do have a family, I live by that. I think that's the creed of a man, period, but especially Black men. And this time and dated time where we're talking about masculinity and all these buzzwords, right? Feminism and all these, I think that's the essence of who we are as a people. That's for any culture anyway, but specifically ours. You have to protect your woman. Honorable Minister Farrakhan talks about killing over his woman. It's like you should kill over your woman, especially if she's your wife, right? You're not going to anybody disrespect her, right? And so that woman is somebody's mother, grandmother, auntie, niece, sister, right? You got to protect, right? And if you don't have strong men around, she is always going to be attacked. That's why we matter. That's why the men matter, because we have to protect you ladies. And so that I love that. I love that. Any remarks from yourself?
I agree. I think that if you don't have anyone to protect the fortress, the palace, the home, there's always going to be someone in line to attack. So I think it's really important. You are stronger together than you are apart.
Okay. Well said. Here's some more notes that you have for us tonight.
Okay, so since I know everybody gets excited about HBCUs, I went ahead and did some research, and there are 101 HBCUs in America. In 1837, Richard Humphreys founded the African Institute, now named, I think it's Sydney University in Pennsylvania. So I thought that was very interesting.
And then we have some comments here from Jay White, creative. Yes, we are very creative. Yes. Just like asked my daughter, she took her hair apart and had her hair looking like this earlier. And she asked, who is that, right? And so at 2 years old, she's being creative like that. So that is very true. Marcus, Black excellence is understanding who being Black is going to some of the prominent HBCU universities from the start and learning the knowledge from building businesses in the community, living in from Alcorn State to Grambling State. Knowledge is power. If not that, pass knowledge to your kids, then honor your woman, period, point blank. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Absolutely. Come with that fire, boy. Miss Shalon. Good evening.
Shalon says strong. Yes.
Yes, we are strong people. Thank you for checking in. To be Black is to be dope. We are not a color, but we are essence, the beginning of civilization. Come on now. They know it's so important, and we know. Yes, we do. And I love her because she's always creative with posts, getting people to think, her creativity. And so I love who she is. Thanks for checking in, sister. And then also spiritual. Yes, we are spiritual.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Even if you don't even go to church, right? I don't go to church, but I got my grandmother's urn right there. And in the morning I meditate, listen to music and whatnot and talk to her. So I do have some type of spirituality. People always probably worship the devil or something like that. No, I don't. No, I don't. But the next topic on here, Black excellence and women inventors. I'll let you have that. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so Black excellence and women inventors. So who do we have first? I thought this was fantastic. It was a picture of Africa. Okay, so Black excellence and women inventors. Who is this? She can you pop the next slide up for me? All right. So Alice, this is Mrs. Mason, but we'll keep going. So Alice H. Parker designed a natural gas fueled new and improved heating furnace. Her design earned a patent in December of 1919. And so if you know anything about patents, long time ago, African Americans would create a lot of different things that we actually use currently and up to date. However, patents were really expensive and they could not afford them. So oftentimes their ideas would be stolen by their counterparts, and then they would go and patent it and then get the proceeds off of their inventions. So that was unfortunate. Okay. And so I just thought this was beautiful because we're talking about Black people, and she looks gorgeous.
So good imagery.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Sarah Goody designed the cabinet bed. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Google it so you can see what it looks like. So the cabinet bed that could fold into a desk. First African-American woman to file a patent in 1885.
And that is so cool. Think about 1885. So you have to be very creative to even think about the measurements and how it folds and all that type of stuff. I don't have an engineering mind or bone in my body. So to even be that creative to come up with something like that is so dope. The next one is
Dr. Shirley Jackson. Work led to the invention, along with development in touch tone phones, portable fax machines, and fiber optic cables.
And so everybody has wireless internet right now, right? But before that, we did have cables, right? Dr. Shirley Jackson is the one we to give credit to for that. So, but I think this is pretty cool because I know some of these, but then some of these I don't know, and so it's always cool to learn about inventors and people that came before us.
So just a little bit more about her because I thought she was fascinating. She's the first Black woman to earn a doctoral degree from MIT. First Black female president of a major technical school as well. The Institute of Black Women of the U.S. and Nuclear Regulation Commission.
That's cool. See, that's what I'm saying. And look, she's a Black woman.
She is.
All are dope. Got some
all right, we have Marie Van Braden Brown invented home security in 1966.
Wow, that's dope. See, and we got the Ring now. So
the Ring doorbell.
Right, everybody have the Ring. But we can give that credit to her because it wouldn't have been where it's at if it didn't start somewhere, right? So it started with her. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is cool. I didn't even know that.
Rock and roll, 1930 and 40, Sister Rosetta Thorpe. And so I know oftentimes people hear about Elvis Presley. They say Elvis Presley was the king of rock and roll. However, some of her music was actually stolen by him and actually put out there. So if you know anything about rock and roll, please contribute it to Mrs. Thorpe.
And I remember, I think was it the movie Ray? Was it Ray? I forget what movie it was, but they touched on that a little bit because it talked about how Elvis Presley was doing Black people music, and it was a big uproar about that, and it was just interesting. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie Ray, but it's interesting how he spanned decades, even with himself, Ray Charles, blind, couldn't see, right, and just musically, just a genius, and how he had to get around to clubs and not being able to count his own money. He, intellectually be like, okay, I can tell where I'm at by how many steps I got to accumulate in my mind and memorization. And so we brilliant people, man.
I did see Ray Charles, and the one thing I felt I felt all of it fascinating, but really fascinating that he can, he almost can determine a woman's waistline by actually grabbing her wrist and how thin or big her wrist was.
Yes. They're like, you ain't that blind, bro. You do whatever.
I said resilience.
Yeah. Comment from Marcus: Love, honor, respect. Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. And then Valita checking in again.
Cadillac.
Yes. Where was it? Right there. Oh, right here. Here we go.
Okay, a good hairbrush. So there were already hairbrushes out. However, they wasn't as functional as women would like. If you guys ever watched the old movie and women would take the brush and brush their hair 100 times, and they would actually count the brushes. So they said those brushes were not functional. So this young lady came up with a new brush, and that was in 1898, and she also put a patent on it as well. Okay. Lydia B. Newman.
They didn't know me. See, that's what
a good hairbrush.
Yeah, that's cool. I got my son, you know, he get his hair cut now, and he hates when I brush his hair, but it's like we attribute that credit to her, right? And so that's dope. I didn't even know that. That's pretty dope. Dope. And again, these are all Black women, Rob. Y'all
all Black women. All right, Bridget Buddy Mason. So that picture he popped up earlier, that was actually Bridget Buddy Mason. She helped shape downtown Los Angeles by purchasing 10 acres for the cost of $250. I actually had my dad Google how much it would cost in Indiana for 10 acres. And it was like 65,000. So, yeah, 65,000. But back then it was 250. I believe they said she actually worked as a midwife and a nurse, and she earned and saved enough money. She purchased rental properties and in downtown Los Angeles. She purchased commercial properties, and she rented them. She actually rented them out. So, she was way ahead of her time.
Okay. And so think about what she's doing, y'all. She's buying land. She's buying land. Mm-hmm. And so as we travel along in our journey as a team, that's the common theme for us, purchasing land, right? Okay. Because you can't really make a difference economically if you're not, purchasing land and providing opportunities socially for your people, right? With impoverished, being impoverished and not having opportunities. Well, affordable housing is one of the things that keeps us from prospering, right? If we do have affordable housing, we can start to accumulate some wealth, not a lot, but some. And so we would love to give a shout out to, what's her name again? Miss Bridget Mason.
Miss Bridget Mason.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you, sister. Thank you for to our ancestors. Next is this one.
All right. Valerie Thomas is a physics inventor, and she also worked with NASA data analysis, patent the 3D movies in 1980. So thank you for those 3D movies.
And I hate those glasses because they make my eyes hurt. What movie did we go see? Was it may have been Superman first? I took the glasses off. I'm like, it ain't even doing me no good.
But don't you think her technology is also being contributed to a lot of the video games that people are playing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Good point. So no, we want to give her love and her flowers, Miss Valerie Thomas, because that is phenomenal to come up with that, to be creative to come up with that concept for movies to view it a different way. And so absolutely, that is pretty cool. It just hurt my eyes. So there we go.
And Miss Patricia Bath invented the laser scalpel probe for laser cataract surgery. So I know a lot of people who wear glasses who no longer wear glasses because they went in and had the laser surgery. And so thank you for that contribution as well.
Absolutely. I used to wear glasses back in the day. I got into a fight and they broke the glasses. I never wore the glasses again.
So you didn't have the surgery?
No, I didn't have. So I just stopped wearing the glasses because I got bullied. That was like in the 5th grade or something like that. I got beat up. That's another story.
I could imagine you getting bullied.
Yeah. Ask my brother because he got mad. What happened? I don't know what we got into. It was some white dudes too, and I was doing like this. I was heavy into wrestling back then, and I was doing like this. And my brother was like, "You might want to stop doing that." Then they was hit me all in the eye. My brother had to jump in and intervene. So yeah, that's the actual true story. My wife laughs every time I tell that story. So Hulk Hogan, shout out to Hulk Hogan for getting me beat up.
All right, we hear some thoughts from our viewers. I actually asked them what they believe it meant to be Black. Before I talk about the viewers, Eugene, why don't you tell us what you believe it is to be Black?
I think it's fighting for what's right, fighting for what's yours, fighting for just our rights as people, fighting for just being equal. I think that's ridiculous. We're in 2022 and we still fighting for the same stuff we were fighting for 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago. So for me, so I have a list too. I don't want to get too crazy with because I got a lot of people, like when we thought about this time, I was like, oh my God, this is like, but I want it to be a history lesson. But these are some of the more important figures that I always think about on a daily basis. And so that's when you ask that question, what it means to be Black, that's what I think about. Go ahead.
All right. So a couple of viewers' thoughts. I asked one particular male, and he said being Black in America is struggle. Okay. And so I can see where that person, where they were coming from when they said that. I know what Black men have to go through. I know the challenges that they face. So I can understand that. The second person is my mom, and I say, hey, I actually asked her yesterday. I said, Mom, what is it? What does it mean for you to be Black? And she said it means to feel safe or being safe. And I was like, you don't feel safe? She was like, in America, she said, oftentimes I worry about my children, about my grandchildren. Now she has great grandchildren. So she said, that's a concern of mine. And I'll just read a little bit of what she said. She said, I worry about my children and my grandchildren because of so much racism in America. She was like, we oftentimes face social inequalities and injustice. And I was like, I understand that. And those were just her thoughts. And my mom's in her 60s. So she's been here a while. She's seen a lot, so those were her thoughts. And then I talked to my dad. And so my dad was like, well, for him, he just said he believed that Black, no matter what plights we go through, the struggles, he still believes that Black is beautiful. But he also understands that we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Okay. And the next one was Crystal, my sister. I said, Crystal, what does it mean to be Black to you? And Crystal said, being Black in America means wearing many hats. And I said, how does that apply? She said, when you think about being Black in America, she said, Black men and Black women, when we walk into a room, it depends on what group of people we're walking into a room. We have to shift who we are just to suit them, because sometimes people feel intimidated because they always label us as being loud or aggressive or violent. So you have to shift who you are just to make them feel comfortable. Okay. And then for me, being Black to me is celebrating who you are. Like I said earlier, resilience, humility, wisdom, courage, excellence, beauty, learning to see the joy in things in this world, even though we face a lot of challenges. So we have to find joy and celebrate ourselves, because oftentimes people want to view us for who they are and not for who we truly are as a people.
And Shalon with a comment. She says, and my mommy is from Greenville, Mississippi. So she's seen and been through a lot. And
yes,
it's just interesting because they have a crazy history. Mississippi does from just since for the beginning of time. Well, what's the guy named Bull Connor? Is that his name? Or was that in Georgia? I think that was in Georgia with Martin Luther King. But Mississippi has had a disgusting history when you talk about race relations, when you talk about our people. And so we are grateful that your mom is still breathing with us, despite all those things that she endured through that area, because my goodness, like, woo.
Some of her male cousins, though, wasn't as fortunate.
Really? Wow. Wow. So, and one thing that I liked, I love, when I talk to older folks, I want to say older, our elders, is that stories like that. Because it always puts it in perspective for me that it wasn't that long ago, y'all. It was not that long ago.
Not at all.
And think about it. If I could sit and talk to my grandmother or my mother or my some would be lucky enough to have their great grandmother alive, and they can just tell you about experiences. Like usually when you talk about your childhood, you talk about, we play with big wheels, we throwing frisbees, we play hula hoop in the street, double dutch, and all that. They're talking about racism. Like, that is crazy to me. And it, like I said, it always puts it in perspective for me because, again, it was not that long ago. Your mother was a child at one time, too. My mother, I remember my mother used to talk about the colored only signs all over the bathroom and stuff. And I'm just like.
Remember when we were working last night, my mom told us about the ones on the water fountains.
Yeah. And so think about that as a child. Like, and then so you're older and you're in your 50s and 60s. And how stuff is trying to change, but you're like, so like it goes again, to just give our people the most credit, because I don't think no other group of people could endure what we went through. And I'll just be frank. I think other groups of people would have committed suicide. They'd have been jumping off ships, buildings, right? Because as we see, and this is just a side note, when certain person was in office, right? And I'm not even a political person at all. But when a certain person was in office, they're taking our jobs. They're taking up, this is going to be a browning of the nation and all this other mess. And this is stupid. Sounds stupid. But according to the census, though, one thing that is interesting, they're going to be in the minority in 20 years, y'all, because they don't, they're not having babies as rapidly as us.
And that's why Wade versus Roe was so pivotal. Yep. And so they switched that now, so they can increase their baby producing, their birth rate.
And Mrs. Wakefield saying to be a survivor, yes, survive, yes. We are in survival mode.
We should have had that song, "I'm a Survivor," from who sung that? Was it
Destiny's Child?
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that all of my. Oh my God. they was popping. And then, so did you have anything else to add?
I did it. That was my portion. I thought it was phenomenal. We couldn't list actually all the inventors because there's so many inventions that Black women contributed to, and also Black men. I do know you have some that you wanted to discuss as well.
Yes,
right?
real quick, because I got a bunch of them, but I don't want it to be a crazy history lesson. But I'll just point out some that I think that's always cool. This is a good brother, a cool brother right here. And I don't know if people know this, but I thought it was a movie coming out about him, but this is Mansa Musa. And Mansa Musa was known as the richest man in history. He became ruler of the Mali Empire in 1312, taking over the throne after his predecessor Abu Bakr II died sometime between 1332 and 1337. And look at Black Panther, they was based a lot of his characteristics off of Mansa Musa. And so I do have the link for anybody want to be able to look and look at some of these articles. Pretty cool guy right here. But he was the richest man on the planet. And yes, look at believe. Yes, she know about that. That's why I love her, because she be on her stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Like, even though she with blue and black, no, red and black. I'm sorry, but we blue and black, so she know what I'm talking about. I ain't gonna get into all the affiliation and all that, but she know her stuff, and so that's why I love that stuff. Right on. We got more here. And see, I don't know if people know this, so this brother right here his name was Duddy Bookman. He was the fearless leader who helped spark the Haitian Revolution of 1804, and he was Jamaican, but he was named Bookman because he can read. And so if you know anything about the Haitian Revolt in 1804, this guy was crucial. He wasn't the star, the person who ignited it, but he was heavily involved in it. And so when I think about being Black, what means to me, I think about us always fighting for what's right, fighting for our rights. And so that's the theme I went with when I looked at some of the people that I wanted to share with you guys tonight. I got another comment. Oh, yeah, she said, I love you too. Absolutely. That's our work trooper right there, by the way. So people don't know. We strong up in here. You know what I'm talking about? We strong up here. My next one was this brother right here. And this is Toussaint. I don't know how to pronounce his last name all the time. Louverture. I'm pronouncing it wrong. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. He led the Haitian, and notice a lot of this around Haitian Revolution. Haitian Revolution inspired millions of free and enslaved people of African descent to seek freedom and equality throughout the Atlantic world. He was one of many leaders from Saint Domingue, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but helped lead the revolt and only Atlantic slave society which successfully defeated its oppressors. So basically, colonizers came to their space and took it over, and they got them people off their island. And so I love that because, again, Black people fighting for their territory, always fighting for their rights, fighting for what's right, and fighting for their territory resources, right? And so we've never seen, I don't know, and I know there's other instances where revolts happen, but this was the one that's always prominent with me because it was successful. And then the former slaves were able to achieve freedom and equality by political, military force when they defeated the advances of French, British, and Spanish troops. And so I love that picture because it just looks like he is in command. Strong brother, like he's in command, right? So when I think of our kings today, that's the images that come to my mind. And so, and here's another guy right here. And I have the link for him. And this is Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And so he was reviled for his brutality, yet honored as one of the founding fathers of Haiti. Dessalines was second in command under the previous guy I just talked about, Toussaint Louverture, I'm pronouncing it correctly, during the Haitian Revolution, and was the general who emerged after Louverture captured that led to his service in declaring Haitian independence in January 1st, 1804. So this is great Black history that I love. I love learning about, when we were fighting and, blood was being spilled, not ours, others, right? So I love that rebellious part of it. But because, again, when I think about Black people, I always think about we're always fighting. If we're in the classroom fighting, we're on the political asylum on Capitol Hill fighting, we're fighting on grassroots, we're always fighting somewhere for our rights. So when I think of Black people, that's what immediately comes to mind. Real quickly, I got one more I want to share. And I got a couple more, but I'm just sharing some pictures, some images here. And so people who know this brother right here, this is Mutulu Shakur. And so this a pretty interesting guy, still in political, he's still a political prisoner right now. He's been part of the New African Independence Movement. Some call him the forefather, obviously the father of the late great Tupac Shakur. And so this guy was a doctor in the late 60s. He was politically active with the Revolutionary Action Movement, a Black nationalist who struggled for Black self-determination. And so when people that's why when they have their views on Tupac, his son, I'm like, you don't really know the history behind this guy, because this guy had some straight up soldiers in his family. So that's where he came from. And, he was also a member of provisional government of the Republic of New Africa, who endorsed the founding of an independent New African Republic. So they were all about Black pride, Black accountability, Black independence. And so when I think of him, I think of these two brothers, because this is Sundiata Acoli, I always pronounce his name wrong, and Mumia Abdul-Jamal. And so Sundiata actually got out last year, but these are other political prisoners of war. Mumia Jamal is still inside. They were wrongly accused of murdering a police officer. And if you remember that case, you remember this sister, which is Assata Shakur. And so you see how all these people are related. But when I think, this is when the images that immediately come to my mind when I think of Black people and what it means to be Black, it's these people immediately, because these people are putting in the work. They're putting in the work in the 60s, 70s, in the early 80s. And so what ended up happening, COINTELPRO was, occurred, and, they tried to frame her. She's in Cuba right now, still living to this day in asylum, because she doesn't want to come back to the United States because they're trying to incarcerate her. And so she's over there to this day. Her daughter is still here, but they released the Cody last year. I don't think Mumia is not. I don't think he's ever going to get out. But they were wrongly accused of killing a state trooper in 1973. And so I love these people, because I used to do a radio show. I was mentioning this to you earlier. Shout out to Alan Gaines. He got me hooked up with his sister, Tahiri, and it was a sign of the times. And we were talking about topics like this. And this is the other list of all these people, and it was many more who are wrongly incarcerated because they were fighting for the rights of our people. See, they don't really talk about these people because, we would be just irate as a people when we found out the true history. They try to sell you Martin Luther King and Malcolm X all the time, right? But it was people way before them that were laying down brickwork in the foundation for our people, for these rights. Robert, I think his name, Robert Jackson, he came up with the gun clubs in the 1940s, who the Black Panther Party, how they started, used his information to start, right, to incorporate themselves. And so it's these people that, again, I'm going to keep emphasizing that comes to mind when I think of being Black. I always think of these people. And so that's why you see me with my attire changing. You see the the kufi hat, the beard. I love that because these are intellectual brothers, right? They aren't running around with their pants sagging. You know, they was about uplifting our people. And so it's just sad to see that they're still in prison because they were fighting just for equal rights for our people. So with that being said, that will conclude everything. But we have some, I think we have a comment here. Asada is everything. Yes. And I'm going to tell you something too. It's a song Common made. If you Google it, or you can go on, it's a beautiful song made. It's called Asada, Song for Asada. Common made, I think it was in 2000, maybe 99, 2000. It was green and white CD. Beautiful song. But, you know, it's people like this that we have forgotten about because we don't know our history. We don't know, you know, and it frustrates me because we forgot them. And I actually wrote Mutulu a couple years ago. Now, I don't know if he received it. I sent him some money too, but I don't know if he received it because that's what changed my name. He probably thought I was an agent or something, right? But I am dedicated into making sure that we don't lose, you know, the history and the presence of these people, because these people are also critical to our struggle and the things that we go through today. And so I would just like to end with that. But so with this broadcast, we wanted to talk about what being Black meant to our people. We hope that we did a good job of that. But we also have to transition to our normal way of doing things, right? And so we're going to start with eye candy, which was Candy Shoe Game, right?
Yeah.
With your shoe game, can you talk about these?
All right. So these boots are from Aldo. And so they're really cute. They're ankle boots, or people call them booties. And the purse is also from Aldo. So it's a look that you can do. I know we're in the fall now, so we're bringing out the booties and the boots and the scarves and sweater dresses. So check out Aldo. I know some of the stores have closed, but you can always go online and order them. So that's the eye candy.
So of course, inquiring minds be like, why would they call it booties? Like, you know
how they're boots, they're ankle boots.
Yeah. So, but do you? Black Entrepreneurs Day, and so I wanted to use this, brother, because I recognize when people are putting in their hard work, and so this is impressive to me. Fellow Edna brother, Mayho Brothers, a construction company that is out. I think it's in Michigan. And so I'd like to give them a shout out, obviously sharing their information, contact information there. Let me remove this so you can see their home improvement out in Michigan. There's their contact information. And so we always like to promote Black businesses, right? And so we would love to bring him on one time, talk about what he got going on. I think he just started this year. I see the work that him and his brother, I didn't know he had a brother, but shout out to him and his brother putting in the work. Again, it takes faithful, diligent people to start their own business and go out on their own and start making production in the world. And so shout out to my man Mark Dwayne for doing that. With that being said, we got another comment too. Oh, she says always been fly. Yes.
Thank you.
Any shout outs you'd like to give, Candace?
I would like to give shout outs. I was supposed to send the pictures. So today, I typically when I do my podcast, I like to be at my house in my own space. My sister called me last weekend when I got out of church and said, "Hey, I'm gonna cook dinner. Will you come home?" And I was like, "Oh, I have to do my podcast." And so she was like, "I'm actually cooking at my house, so will you come home and join me?" So I said, "Sure." So just a shout out to my sister Crystal. She had Sunday dinner at her house. We all went to church today, and then we came to her house for Sunday dinner, and it was good. So shout out to her. Shout out to my mom. You know, my sister really wants to prepare everything herself, but my mom could not allow it. She always wants to step in and help. So the food was actually great. Shout out to my father. Well, you know, my mom is from Mississippi. You know, she has this southern hospitality. We had corn on the cob. My mom made homemade cream corn as well. We had rice, cube steak with gravy, chicken and cabbage, and cornbread muffins. I didn't have any of the cake yet, but we had a pound homemade lemon pound cake,
Y'all ain't playing.
They made a Jello cream cake. My nephew's mom made that. My dad's niece made another pound cake and masticholi. Tons of drink and ice cream.
Y'all is feast.
And I was like, well, you know, sure I eat, and I'm not eating too much so that I can be prepared and awake for the show. I am at Crystal's house actually doing the podcast.
Shout out to Crystal. Shout out, and we know we want to get a plate. So when in town, we come to y'all get a plate. But shout out to Crystal, Katie, and the whole Wilson family. That's what's up. My shout outs would be to I wouldn't say shout outs, just saying acknowledgement, and just want to tell these brothers I love them. Kevin Jenkins, Mickey, call Andrew Moore, his name Andrew Moore, but call him Mickey. Charles Doty, Alexander Jones, Martellus Jenkins, Antoine Clayton, obviously he was there. David Lavelle was there. You know, when Jason Ford, his funeral was Monday, and so showed up, showed out, supported the family. It was good seeing those brothers, hanging out with them again. Haven't been in the same space with all of them at the same time for years, and so just want to tell the brothers I love them. Tell the Ford family that we love them and we support Lisa and the little babies that he left behind. And it was just a day of love. And then also my brother's father passed away, and so his ceremony was Friday, and so I was there just supporting. I wrote she hit me up. So Roro and Lulu, she's like, why you use my name? So Roro and Lulu, and so seeing Uncle Ralph and Auntie Linda and the rest of the Wheeler family, even though it was under those circumstances, showing love and supporting them at that time of need. And so just, I think as Black people, as our people, we just need to be supportive whenever someone, even if they're not intertwined with your family, they pass away. Death can be a traumatic experience. And so we want to make sure that we remember both of those individuals in the right light. And so being supportive by just showing up, you didn't really got to be anything, just showing up and supporting what was needed. So I just like to give a shout out to those two people. Go ahead.
I want to send my condolences to Tamika. She's one of our classmates, and her father, she lost her father this week. Okay. So sending condolences to her. And, would you like to donate something to the family from the podcast?
Absolutely.
You can inbox and let her know.
Absolutely. And like that story was really weird. Don't want to give details, but just when people lose one another's loved ones, you never know what they're going through. And so, yes, we would love to send something in support of that and condolences to that family as well. And so we have our next podcast. And apologies again, because last week I had, and I'm just it was on me. I had so much going on, so I didn't want to rush it. And, we was excited for last week. And so we would try to be back on a 2-week schedule. And so our next podcast obviously will be October 30th. And the topic's about just being healthy, right? What that means spiritually, eating, mentally, physically, financially, what that mean, what does that look like, and what does that mean exactly? And so it should be an interesting conversation because I've been getting a lot of inquiries about this, right? Hopefully we get some health professionals on. We may have a classmate or two on talking about some of the health challenges that they've had to endure in the past couple months. And so it was shocking to me, when she just talked about it, and she's like, I would love to come on. She told me I would love to come on and talk. I was like, wow, okay. So, but we will try to nail that down for you guys. That would be our next show. With that being said, peace. Enjoy your weekend. Well, the rest of your weekend, because it's Sunday night. We love you guys, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Till next time.